it's great to just be together and worship the Lord. And the whole sermon isn't necessarily about bullies, okay? But we hear a lot about bullies anymore, don't we? Bullies in school, cyberbullying, all that stuff. There was a study done in the United Kingdom recently. They studied cyberbullying. Bullying posts on social media says are intended to threaten or humiliate someone, publishing videos or photos that embarrass or intimidate, sometimes posting personal or private information such as where they live online. Now this is a quote. Victimization in this study took place on various platforms, with Facebook the most commonly reported. 74% of cyberbullying was on Facebook, 17% on Twitter, 9% on Snapchat, and 9% on Instagram. Common forms of victimization included the spreading of vicious rumors. Some of these things keep in mind. Vicious rumors. 49% of participants who experienced cyberbullying said they were subject to rumors. Threats, 44%. And exclusion from a group, such as chat rooms or online games, 29%. An escalation of bullying in the schoolyard to bullying online, or vice versa, could be at the hands of the perpetrator or of the victim seeking revenge. He bullied me at school, shoved my things around for no reason, and laughed at me with his friends, made fun of my clothes and the way I speak. I could not take it anymore, so one day I created a fake Facebook account and badgered him with texts and posts. I'm not sorry, he deserved it for what he was doing to me at school. Another girl who's a participant said she kept telling people to ignore me and not like my posts. She would embarrass me whenever I would upload a photo, and she would share my photos with others just for a laugh. So one day I just went up to her and told her to leave me alone. But she laughed, and that made me so angry, so I pushed her down. Now she does it even more, and her friends join in as well. I don't know how to stop this. Our dictionaries keep changing with our society, and there's an expression that used to be around that means you did a good job, bully for you, or bully for me. We talk about the bully pulpit. You have an advantage maybe. So I just kind of looked online to see what people's definitions of bullying were, characteristics of a bully. Okay? So here are some of them. A bully seeks to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived to be vulnerable. Bullies are habitually cruel, insulting, or threatening. They are controlling rather than leading. That's an interesting. Controlling rather than leading. They lack sympathy, they lack empathy, and are not sympathetic to others' needs. Bullies blame You've seen that happen, haven't you? They made me do it. In fact, in domestic violence, a lot of times, I remember a couple that was having some problems, and he says, she makes me do it. And she said, yeah, I know what buttons to push. Blaming. They have difficulty following rules. They have little respect for authority. They view violence in a positive way as a way to get their needs met, or as entertainment. And they can be manipulative. So who's the bully? As I look over all these characteristics that we've mentioned, and along with some others, maybe we're all potentially bullies. But there's the master bully. He's the bully's bully. No one can out-bully Satan. All these characteristics you can see in him. Isaiah 14, most of these texts we're going to look at today are very familiar to all of us, I think. Isaiah 14, 12 through 14. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you will be brought down to Sheol, to the lowest depths of the pit. You weakened the nations. You were a bully. You even tried to bully God. I will be like the Most High. Is he smart? He's brilliant.
In some ways, but he did the stupidest thing ever.
That's right.
He's so smart.
Does he? So smart, that's good. Does he have common sense?
No.
No. But somehow, he was so blinded by his desire for supremacy. I've got to be in charge. I have to have the followers. His characteristics are similar to what we read. He was exclusive. More likely he was secretive. And that's the way sometimes bullies work too. That you can be part of my clique. Vicious rumors. Yeah, he spread vicious rumors about the Creator. Insulting, controlling. There are different ways of controlling, by the way. Blaming God for what? Do you have difficulty with the rules? Did he have respect for authority? Eventually he was viewing violence in a positive way, and he's very manipulative. And Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 through 12, and war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was place found for them in heaven any longer. Even though we go through what we go through in this world and in this life, if we're committed to Jesus, he already won that battle in heaven, right? and we know later on. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast out to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren," that's the bully, "the accuser of our brethren who accused them before God day and night has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives to the death. Therefore, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time." So he came down here. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field, which the Lord had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God indeed said, 'You shall not eat of every tree of the garden'?" And the woman said to the serpent, see, she's getting sucked in now. And he's sounding like her friend. And bullies can do that sometimes too. He's going to be bullying her very soon. But he's sounding like, he's still trying to bully the Creator. Said to the woman, the woman said back to him, "We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, 'You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die.'" Now, I haven't read the record of God telling them not to touch it, but that makes sense. But she's getting sucked into it wasn't quite an argument yet, but it's going there. Then the serpent said to the woman, "You shall not surely die, for God knows," God's holding out on you. He knows something and he's not telling you. God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. What did he say he was going to be? I will be like the Most High. I'll be in charge. He isn't talking about God's character for sure. But he says you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And our minds always go back when we get to the next part, right? If you ever watch a movie or anything and something bad is going to happen, you just think, maybe it'll change this time. Don't we wish it would change this time? She took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the devil was right. The eyes of them were opened. They knew that they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. He bullied God. He tried to bully God in heaven. And now he's going to focus on God's people, on Adam and Eve. And in that, he posed as their friend, but he's still bullying God. Exclusion, vicious rumor, vicious about God. insulting. Eve, you're pretty dumb. You don't know. You need to know more. This will make you smart. Insulting, controlling. He has his way of controlling and made this just be manipulations, sucking you in like he's your friend. Blaming. He's definitely having difficulty with rules when he tempts us. He has little respect for God's authority. He views violence in a positive way, and he's manipulative. It's the way he works with us. And I'm not trying very hard, but I'm trying to picture what it must have been like for Adam and Eve when they took a bite of the fruit. When we were kids visiting, families get together Sabbath afternoons, and the kids get together, and my friend Don and I passed the freezer, and he said, "Let's have some ice cream." And we had some ice cream. He says, "It always tastes better when it's stolen." I think Adam and Eve had an elated feeling. He's right. Our eyes are open. And there's something about violating the rules that just seems rewarding for a minute. And then they realize, hey, the light is gone. We're naked. Can you imagine the letdown? Have you ever deliberately sinned? Probably. I have to admit that I have. I just knew better. But I wanted to do it. And I did it. I don't know how to describe it, but I think you understand it. There is a dark feeling. Just a feeling, it's a big let down. It's a feeling of darkness. Can you imagine the dark, depressed feeling came over Adam and Eve? And now, God is going to come and take his regular stroll around through the garden with them. And they went and hid. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 18 and 19 says, "The path of the just is like the shining sun that shines even brighter unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble." Romans chapter 1, verse 21, "Although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise," this fruit will make you wise, "they became fools." The book Testimonies to the Church, volume 5, says, "The Creator has been presented to their minds as clothed with the attributes of the prince of evil himself, as arbitrary, severe, and unforgiving." And I believe that's the way Adam and Eve felt between the time they ate the fruit and the time God came walking in the garden. They were afraid of him. He's severe. He's unforgiving. He's arbitrary. He makes up the rules as he goes. The Creator has been presented to their minds as clothed with the attributes of the Prince of Evil himself, as arbitrary, severe, and unforgiving, that he might be feared, shunned, and even hated by men. That's what happened to Adam and Eve right away. It's what happens to us. When we sin, we're like that. We are living in darkness. And we're afraid of God. And we see him as one that's he's bound to punish us. What's my punishment going to be? I don't even want to talk with him anymore. Have you ever felt that way when you've sinned? Not like you just kind of try to ignore it and think it'll go away. And if I ignore God long enough, maybe he'll forget it. We know better than that. But those kinds of attitudes go through our mind. Arbitrary. I looked some of these definitions up in the dictionary too. Arbitrary is one who's using or abusing unlimited power, uncontrolled or unrestricted by law, despotic, capricious. Is God capricious? What is capricious?
He wants his own way.
Yeah, wants our own way. It's whimsical or erratic. Everything keeps changing. The rules keep changing on us. God just that's the way the devil wants us to look at God. Revelation 13, 7 through 8 says it was granted to him. You're familiar with Revelation 13 and the beast and the mark of the beast and the image to the beast and all that was granted to him to make war with the saints, to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Look at our world today. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from where? The foundation of the world. Does that look like a God who's capricious? Does that look like a God who just keeps changing his mind and wants to make our lives miserable? No. Severe. How severe is God? Hosea chapter 11. You might want to turn there with me this morning. Isaiah chapter 11.
Hosea or Isaiah?
Did I say Isaiah? Hosea. Thanks. I turned to it right away because I had my marker there. But Hosea chapter 11 and verses 1 and 3 through 4 and 8. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Verse 3. I taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by their arm, but they did not know that I healed them. I drew them with gentle cords, with bands of love. And I was to them as those who take the yoke from their neck. I stooped and fed them. Is this the severe God? Verse 8. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over, Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I set you like Zebolim? My heart churns within me. My sympathy is stirred. Does that sound like a severe God? That's not the picture Satan wants you to have of him. Unforgiving. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 6, for it is the God who commanded light to shine out of darkness, who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus. What do you think he's talking about? He talks about the face of Jesus. His love. Who Jesus is revealed in so many things, especially in the Gospels. When 4 people took the paralytic to the top, up on the house, they couldn't get in to see Jesus, and they let him down through the roof, and Jesus is standing there, and he's looking into the face of Jesus. What must that have been like? And his greatest desire was not to walk necessarily. Sure, he wanted to walk. His greatest desire was to have his sins forgiven. And Jesus assured him, your sins are forgiven. He's not an unforgiving God. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And of course, you remember the woman who had been caught in adultery. Nowadays, that'd be no big deal in people's thinking. But it was in all of that society then. It wasn't just a matter of I've sinned against God. Everybody hates me because I'm an adulterer. And she was brought out into the open with a crowd of people around. And she didn't even want to see the face of Jesus. But she's looking down, and you remember the story. Everyone scatters who's been bringing her to be judged. And Jesus said, where'd they go? She says, there's no one here. She sees the face of Jesus, and he says, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. And I don't think that was a harsh, so you don't have to live like this. You're free. Go and sin no more. That is not an unforgiving God. And even to people who tend to be bullies and critical themselves, remember Simon the leper, Simon the Pharisee. When Mary came and anointed Jesus' feet, he knew Simon was being critical of her. If this man was a prophet, he'd know she's a sinner. And Jesus could have outed him right there. Jesus could have said, Simon, how about you? You had something to do with her, by the way. Jesus didn't do that. He said, Simon, there were 2 people that owed a debt. One was not very big, the other was huge. And he's thinking, yeah, she's the huge one. Who's going to, it's forgiven both of them, who's going to love him the most? Jesus is even kind and considerate and caring to bullies. He's forgiving. John 12:46 says, I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. We don't have to live there with our sin hanging over our heads. Colossians 1:13, he has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love. 1 John 2, verses 8 and 9. Again, a new commandment I write to you, which thing is true in him and in you, because darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining. We don't have to live in darkness with a bully. We don't have to be bullies. He who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in darkness until now. He who loves his brother abides in the light, and there's no cause for stumbling in him. Romans 5:17, for if by one man's offense, that would be Adam, death reigned through the one, much more those who receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness will reign in life through the one, Jesus Christ. Scientists, I picked this up from a book of illustrations. John Bradshaw has a new little book of illustrations out. The scientists working in the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Greenland announced they had found a Greenland shark that they calculate could be 512 years old. Isn't that amazing? A tortoise was found to be 177 years old. And Adam was found to be 930 years old. And Methuselah, 969 years. And Enoch, we don't know how many years he lived. Or Elijah. God designed us to live forever. And we don't have to live in darkness. We don't have to be subject to the bully. And we don't have to be bullies ourselves. We don't have to live in darkness. We can live in light right now. And by God's grace, we're going to live in light through eternity. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 16 and 17 says, the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. I did read about a missionary from America who was teaching in a seminary in Africa somewhere. I forget where that was. And he read this text, and one of the seminary students asked, he's going to shout. What's he going to say when he shouts? And the seminary teacher said, he thought for a moment, well, you know, the Bible doesn't say. But finally he said, I think he's going to shout enough. Enough of sin, enough of suffering, enough of bullying, whatever. He's going to shout, it's enough. Then they who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds. The dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we'll be caught up in the clouds together with them and to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Amen. All the bullying will be over with. And the neat thing is, I must have been about 12 or 13 years old. And we had some neighbor kids, a couple of brothers. Now, it's nice to paint ourselves in the light of heroes. So, but my little sister was sitting on her tricycle. And these boys came over, and the bigger one, the younger one was a little smaller than me, the older one was just a little bigger than me. And they were pestering her. And they just happened to be in the right position. Their heads were close together. And I just said, leave her alone. See, I painted myself as the hero, right? But that came to my mind, and I'm thinking, one of these days, Jesus is going to knock some heads together. Because he's the protector. He is the one who has defeated already the bully. Ezekiel 28:19 says, all who knew you among the peoples are astonished at you, speaking to the bully. You have become a horror and shall be no more forever. I remember studying with a lady who was a quadriplegic, and she was living with her mother, an older lady, and I remember as I was leaving the house, the mother said, I have a question, and her question was about eternal hellfire and about the devil. And so if he's supposed to be stoking the fires, what's happening to him? And she was confused, and I suggested, between now and the time I come back next week, why don't you read Ezekiel chapter 28 and see what you think? And as soon as I came back, she said, I read that chapter, and it says he won't be anymore. That's wonderful. Our lives will not be dark. We'll live in the light, and we can live in the light now. This closing song says there'll be no dark valley when Jesus comes. That's number 208. 200.